Hi, welcome to Off the Shelf Book Talk with Book Lovers. I'm Elizabeth Nelson, and this is my co-host, Kay Johnson. What you reading, Kay?
Well, it's been a good week for books. And, well, of course, every week's a good week for books, but I'm a big fan of Ellen Hildebrand, and she does chick lit.
Yes.
And I was just on Amazon one day looking around, and lo and behold, a Christmas release.
Oh.
She did a series the last 3 years, finished it last year, and started a new one now. And what makes it interesting is she always writes about Nantucket. And this is the first time that she isn't. It takes place in Iowa and in the Caribbean islands.
That's a change.
And and it's
From Nantucket to Iowa.
Yeah, and it's an interesting book because it's a husband and wife who are in their 50s. They've been married a long time. There's 2 grown sons who live in different places, and her husband has a great job, and she's got a lot of money, so she's redone a Victorian house, and she's really happy. And she's getting ready to celebrate New Year's when the phone rings, and she finds out her husband's been killed in a helicopter crash.
Oh, no.
In the Caribbean islands, where he has no reason to be. And meanwhile, she calls one son who's losing his business, calls her other son whose wife is leaving him for another woman. And these 3 descend on the Caribbean islands to find out what was going on with Russ. And all sorts of things were going on with Russ. And so it's a great book, but it's the first in a series. So I assume maybe a 3-book series.
Okay.
So it ends on a cliffhanger.
Oh.
And I was just like, ah! But it's Winter in Paradise
Okay.
by Ellen Hildebrand. So if you like her books, you'll love it.
Okay. I am still on hold for, what is it? The Perfect Couple was one you talked about in a previous. I have been on hold for that book through the library since you mentioned it.
Oh, I'm not surprised. That's a really popular book because it's a great story.
I've had every other hold on ebook has come in, and that one is still hanging out there at the bottom.
Yeah,
So,
her books have progressively gotten more and more popular.
Okay.
And I don't know if people have just caught on to her or what, but I enjoy her books a lot.
Okay.
But they're, we're not talking brain science here or anything. We're talking fun chick lit, great evening read, that kind of thing. So what are you reading, Elizabeth?
Well, I just finished literally before I saw you this afternoon. I listened to an audiobook by Neil Gaiman called The Graveyard Book.
Okay.
And the story's about, it's this young toddler who a guy murders his family, and in the middle of the night he's wandered out of the house and out to this graveyard with this killer in pursuit, and all of the ghosts that live in this graveyard have decided that they're going to protect and raise the boy and keep him safe from this killer. So it's everything that happens over his life from when he's there through when he gets older and the killer finds him again. So it's how, he's just this toddler running around a graveyard with the protection, and he has a vampire for a guardian that lives there too in the chapel. And it's very much Neil Gaiman. It fits into his real sci-fi kind of fantasy aspect. But the audiobook was fantastic. He narrates it himself.
So why was the killer chasing this kid?
The stupid answer is going to be because he wanted to kill him.
Yes.
If
but
you
there's
want to
a
know
deeper answer.
Yes, if you want to know the exact reasons, you have to read the book.
Cruel and unusual punishment, Elizabeth.
Yep. Well, you don't want to spoil it. I mean, it follows it's just kind of a few of the chapters are how he interacts with the different people in the graveyard and that kind of stuff.
Does he live in the graveyard?
He lives in the graveyard. He is raised by 2 ghosts. He sleeps in the crypt. He lives in the graveyard.
Where are social services?
They forgot about him. They don't know about him. So he's a human being raised by a graveyard full of dead people.
And does he know they're all dead?
Yes.
And is that an issue?
Nope. Well, if it's all you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
he's
that's
been there
true.
since he's a
It's
baby.
your normal.
We'll go with that, I guess.
I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it was sort of since we finished up October, I had kind of a real overarching theme with kind of the sci-fi murder type theme of books. So, I mean, I had a lot of those kind of ones. Another one I read was called, it's an Anthony Horowitz book. He wrote The Word is Murder. And have you read this one?
No, but
Okay.
I've read The House of Silk.
Okay, yep. So this book, it's the author who wrote it has actually written himself into the book.
Oh, okay.
So-
Is this his newest one?
I don't think it's his newest one. No,
Okay.
it's one of the more current ones, I think. But he's written himself into the book, so he actually talks about turning in House of Silk to his publishers. And so he's written himself into this book as a Watson type character
Okay.
for a consulting detective. So it's set in modern London. And the whole book starts out with a lady goes into a funeral parlor to set up her funeral. So it's all ready to go. And then 6 hours after she leaves the funeral parlor, she is found murdered. So, yep. So then it just all goes in from there, and it's all told from the writer's point of view. So it was really interesting because he's bringing in like his real life into this fictional world. And
I
so-
did not like House of Silk.
Okay, I haven't read that one.
Yeah, I
so-
wouldn't. It's about a group of wealthy men who use orphans,
Okay.
orphan boys,
Enough said.
and so yeah, I was disappointed.
Well,
but
Anthony Horowitz is the first person to be like written down that he could continue the Sherlock Holmes
okay.
series. So he had the permission, and it was the first time it was given to like continue the Sherlock Holmes story.
Okay.
So that's where House of Silk,
Okay.
that idea came
Yes. Okay.
from.
Well.
So
Okay. So I'll
Yeah.
cut him some slack.
you'll get him some slack.
His first book, I think, was Confederate in the Attic,
Okay.
and it's about he follows a Confederate reenactor
Okay.
around the South and all the things, and they talk
Okay.
about, how these different communities believe in the Civil War, and it's really good because this reenactor like starves himself, so he's like super skinny, like the Confederate soldiers were, because they were starving, and all this kinds of stuff. He was very committed to realism
Yeah.
and stuff. So that's a good book. I recommend that one.
Okay, we'll have to check that one out. What else did I read recently? The other one audiobook I just finished was The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein. This one's by Kirsten White, and so it is the telling of the Frankenstein book by Mary Shelley, but it's told from the point of view of Elizabeth Frankenstein, or before she was a Frankenstein, actually, she was a girl that was brought in to be kind of a playmate for Victor Frankenstein.
Okay, got it.
And so it's her view of everything that happened with a twist. And it was really interesting. I actually think I like it better than the Mary Shelley Frankenstein version.
I'm not a huge fan of Frankenstein.
It doesn't surprise me. It's sort of a zombie, though. So I kind of thought you would have liked it. Well, he's a reanimated dead body.
Yeah,
It's a zombie.
oh, that's true. Only he's not animated like a zombie. He's animated to be like a man.
I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
But I mean, the point of view that this book is told from Elizabeth, it's very different than the Shelley
book?
version. Yeah. So I really liked it. Like I said, I listened to the audiobook, and I thought that was really good. And it did take a little bit of getting into. The book at the beginning was a little boring, but it picked up once things got going.
Okay. So did she think they were weird? Did the girl think these people were a little different?
Elizabeth?
Yeah.
Well, she was brought in as a ward with the Frankenstein family to kind of help make Victor normal. To help, I don't want to give away too much,
okay.
but she was kind of brought in and was kind of Victor's playmate, I guess is the way to phrase it. So
Okay.
I think she knew he was weird, but that was how she kept her livelihood, by staying with them, by being with him.
Right.
So.
So she kind of overlooked their weirdness to a degree.
To a degree, yeah, for a while.
Okay. Yeah, for a while. Well, there's a guy rising in the basement. We better go talk about it. Well, one book, I discovered a writer named Eric Brown. Is it Eric Brown? Hang on one sec.
Are you reading while I'm talking to you?
No, I was just, yeah, it is Eric Brown. Eric Brown is the author of mysteries, and I really, really like him. I stumbled on him. He was a free book
Okay.
in Kindle Unlimited, and he has 4 books out.
Okay.
And it's about a guy who's a writer. He writes mysteries, and he was in World War II,
Okay.
and now he's back in London. He's writing books, and he's kind of moved on, and he has a publisher or agent he goes to, and he's in love with Marie, who works for the agent, but he's too afraid to ask her out because she's so good looking.
Okay.
And that's kind of the premise. And when his agent, Charles, he's a homosexual, and in England at that time, if you're caught
Yeah.
being a homosexual, you get thrown in jail because you're breaking the law.
illegal, yeah.
So Charles gets caught with a pool boy, and so that's sort of in the background of the story. So it brings the writer and Marie together,
Okay.
and then they have to solve a mystery. And then in the 4 books, they date,
Okay.
they get engaged, and then they get married.
Okay.
And or it's to that degree. And Charles goes to jail, and Charles gets out, and
Okay.
but they're really well done, and they're fun. So that I read those 4; those are really great. I
What was
like
the name
those.
of the first one again?
The author's Eric Brown,
Okay.
and the first one, let's see, I'm not sure the order.
Okay.
But if you look them up online on
Yeah.
anywhere, you can find them.
Yep.
But
I can make sure it's in the note on them.
the
when we put
the
them up.
best one is the Locke mystery.
The lock mystery. Okay.
Yeah, because their colonel in World War II, he thinks someone's trying to kill him, and he lives in a castle in the mountains of Scotland. And the writer and his friend, who owns a detective agency, go to protect their colonel.
Oh, okay.
And a blizzard comes. And this is actually how I think I found these, because I did a search for environmental mysteries
Oh, okay.
for blizzard mysteries, and I think that one popped up, and then I looked for them online and
Okay.
found out one was free. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was good. I recommend them. I don't know if you can get them at the library, but you can probably order them,
Yeah.
I would think.
Okay. Yeah. With one that I'm reading right now that I stumbled across. It's a series, kind of that cozy. Like, what do they call them? Cozy mysteries.
I like cozy mysteries.
So kind of the lighthearted. I'm currently reading Strawberry Shortcake Murder by Joanne Fluke.
She's from Minnesota, isn't she?
It is, yep. So this is the second book in her Hannah Swenson series.
Okay.
And the books are set in Lake Eden, Minnesota,
Okay.
which I'm not sure if that's a real town, but they talk about Wilmer and going to St. Cloud. So I'm
Okay.
guessing it's set in this general area.
Okay.
And she owns a cookie bakery
Okay.
in her hometown where she grew up, and starts. Of course, people start dying.
Of course, from her
And-
cookies.
No, not from
Oh,
her
good.
cookies.
Thank
no,
goodness.
But just people in the town. Well, in the first book, which is called Chocolate Chip Cookie Murder, the delivery milkman is murdered in the back alleyway behind the bakery, and that's how she kind of gets into it. So it's her and a police officer kind of trying to solve stuff where, he's saying stay out of it.
Of
which
course.
She obviously doesn't. And then you have her mother trying to set her up with her friend's son. And all that stuff kind of going in. And we were talking earlier about how reading books, if they talk about food, makes you hungry.
Yes.
Well, with these books, she puts recipes for the cookies she's talking about at the end of several of the chapters, so you can make them.
Oh, that would be fun. So you could actually be eating the cookies while you're reading
could,
about the
yes.
cookies.
Yep. So the one that I'm currently reading, the Strawberry Shortcake Murder, there is a local, there's a flour company that's hosting a baking show. And so they've come to Lake Eden to do this, and so she is one of the judges.
Okay.
And so after the first night of judging, one of the judges is murdered. And he is found dead in his garage, and he's fallen into her strawberry shortcake that she'd made for him to take home. So it's her trying to figure out who did it and keeping a friend of hers kind of
Out of jail?
out of jail. Yep. So, but they're really good. They're just kind of that lighthearted, feel good, nothing too gory or intense.
And
with
boy,
those.
my hungry books.
Yes. Yep. The I need a cookie right now kind of book.
I like those kind of books.
Yes, yep.
There was a writer, he's dead now, his name was Lawrence Sanders, and he wrote The First Deadly Sin, Second Deadly Sin, and his protagonist loves sandwiches. And so that those books are full of him eating wet sandwiches, which he eats over the sink, or dry sandwiches, which he eats at the table. And I mean, he's a gourmet, you know, it's like lean roast beef and horseradish and special kind of bread. And oh my goodness, you read these and you're thinking, I have to have a sandwich.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of falls in line with the Lillian Jackson Brown books, like A Cat Who Read Backwards,
Yes.
all of those. It's the group of people, and they're always talking about what they're eating. And like I remember Mom saying, I wanted to eat so bad when I was reading these books, and you want to and I mean, it's the same kind of thing. It's these huge meals that are so good. And
There's a series of books by Laura Child's Tea Room Mysteries.
Yes.
And there, it's all about tea, and then it's all the food they serve at the tea room. And oh my, all sorts of really great things. I mean, you just want to sign me up.
Yeah. Well, I kind of think there's been a real resurgence in the cozy mysteries too. I think people are kind of maybe pulling back a little bit from the Gone Girl type books and looking for more of that kind of lighthearted.
I definitely am not into the psychological thrillers, and they tend to demonize women. I mean,
It kind of depends, I think, on the version, because with the psychological ones, I would think Ruth Ware, I would kind of say she's more of a psychological mystery writer, and hers I like, but some of them, can be a little.
They're disturbing.
Yeah.
I don't like disturbing.
Kind of like books that you have to put them down and then go do something.
Yeah, or you have to
happy
read
for a
them with the
while.
lights on.
Yes. Maybe I shouldn't read this book right before bed.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. There's some like that are just kind of where you go and you don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah. Another one I finished recently was The Good Neighbor, The Life and Works of Fred Rogers.
I saw you posted online about that.
This is the new one by Maxwell King that just came out, and so it's the first, I think, real big biography about Mr. Rogers. And I mean, this is coming out right after the documentary and the movie that's going to be coming out. And I know that in past episodes I've talked too much about Mr. Rogers.
Oh, I think
that's just the season of life we are in at the Nelson house right now, is Mr. Rogers and Daniel Tiger. Because as I've mentioned before, have a 2-year-old who loves Mr. Rogers and only wants to watch him on repeat all day long.
Well, and we had lunch today. We went, and Alex is sitting in his little high chair eating his macaroni and cheese, and he's watching Mr. Rogers on her phone.
Yes, and if you try to turn it off,
no,
does not go well.
No.
But I thought that this was really great. I mean, it just kind of again reaffirms why everybody likes him so much. It follows, from all of the charity work his parents did, and then it goes from all of him growing up through school when he met his wife.
Was it his parents who influenced him and
gave
him that?
He was born into a very well-off, wealthy family, and he was an only child. And his parents were always very giving and would take care of the people that worked for them. And his mom did a lot of charity work. I think there was one part where they say she learned to knit at the age of 13 because she wanted to send sweaters to the soldiers that were fighting in the war at the time. And she's the one that actually knit all of the sweaters he wore on the show.
Oh, that's interesting.
So all of the sweaters he wears were his mom made.
I didn't know that.
But it was really interesting, especially seeing how he met his wife. And
now his father wasn't a minister.
No, he was an ordained minister himself. Yes, his father was a businessman. I don't remember where he worked off the top of my head, but it was really interesting to see that, and especially there were a couple of chapters that talked about him and his family. So at one point, his sons were growing marijuana in their basement, and
Mr. Rogers?
Mr. Rogers' sons were growing marijuana in the basement, and he was like, what this comes out, this is not going to be good. But it was just interesting to kind of see the way they talked about stuff and how he would kind of use the character voices. If people were kind of on the fence, he would call and talk as Daniel Tiger
or
King Friday to people. Just kind of try to be like, well, they'll say no to me, but they won't say no to Daniel. So it was really interesting. And yeah,
So how many kids did he have?
he has 2 boys, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. So
And none of them followed in his sweater?
no sweater wearers, I guess. But yeah, no, it was good. It's kind of a lighthearted read. It went really quick. Wasn't like overly dry. So that was really nice. And Alex would see the book laying there with Mr. Rogers on the cover and would start talking, pointing, rah, rah, Rogers. Yeah, he knew who it was. So
He's got a fan for life there.
he does, yes. But yeah, no, it was like I said, it was really good. I kind of went through a bunch of books back to back to back. And that was when I finished that one. I was like, well, I have a good feeling now. So I need to read all the books with good feelings.
Yeah, well, there's some cozy mysteries then.
Yes, yeah.
But there is something to be said about a nice book, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I read the second in the series by Mitch Albom, The Next Person You Meet in Heaven.
That's new, isn't it?
Yes, yep,
Just
that
came
one
out?
just came out, and it's the sequel to The 5 People You Meet in Heaven.
Okay.
Which, so in the first one, the 5 People You Meet in Heaven, there's a maintenance man at a pier that dies, saving the life of a little girl. And so then it talks about the 5 people he meets when he
Okay.
goes to heaven, hence the name of the book. And so this one then focuses on the life of the girl that he saved.
Okay.
So she and her husband are in a car accident on the night of their wedding. And so this is her visit to heaven.
Okay.
But there is kind of a twist at the end, which was nice.
A good
but
twist?
Yeah, but I mean, it was sort of still that it was the sweet kind of Mitch Albom, but it still was kind of like
Oh.
type book. But yeah, it was good. It was very
He's got a lot of play. You see that book a lot.
Yes, yep, and there was a movie made out of it, and the first one, and so. But I think it stuck true to how the first one was, which was nice to see.
So the second one's out like for Christmas giving, I bet.
Yeah, yep, it would be out. It came out I think partway through October.
Okay.
It came out. So.
Well, if you like big family sagas, Tanamera by, have you ever read these?
I haven't read those, no.
Well, Noel Barber was a foreign correspondent during World War II. And he wrote a series of non-fiction books, like The Fall of Paris and different things about the Far East during World War II.
Okay.
And then when the war ended, he took all those books and turned them into fictional stories. So he did all the research and he just added some names and changed the names and
To protect the innocent.
yeah, I think so. And Tanamera takes place in Singapore.
Okay.
And it's the story of the Dexter family. And Grandpa Dexter comes out from England. You know, he's going to make his mark on the world, and he's smart, and he's nervy, and he's gutsy, and it's a land where opportunities at every corner. And so he creates Dexter Company, and what they do is they act as if say you grow rubber, and you want to sell your rubber, the Dexter Company will transport it,
Oh, okay.
get it on a ship, be the middleman
Okay.
to do all that. And so they're millionaires. They live in a huge White House and all this sort of things. But it's right before the war, and there's a color barrier. White people don't marry or
Yeah.
any of that with Malay or Singaporean people. And then World War II comes and the Japanese invade and all sorts of things happen. And then because of the war, all change comes.
Yeah.
But it's a great, great book. And I've read it a couple times. So when I'm kind of desperate, it's just that it's a real book. and I'm sort of like, wow, it's a big real book. It's got little print. I can't make it bigger. And so that's kind of an adjustment.
Yeah.
But he's written several. Farewell to France is a great one. You can get them at the library.
Okay. Cool.
And so on that note,
Yes. So if you have any suggestions for us or just want to get in touch with us about your favorite books, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. You can send us an email at offtheshelfbooktalk@gmail.com. And on that note, we'll see you next time.